trade number or something or the other. It might be 63. I think it's 63. I think Tim and Chuck think it's 67 or 65 or something like that. But they're counting the redos. I'm not counting the redos. So we're going to cause a lot of problems in the future as we get the numbers all mixed up. The more we do redos, we'll get it all confused. But that's just the way it is. I assume that we are live. I assume I've got sound. Tim, you with me? Tim has been losing internet, and Chuck is still on the road. So, there you go. Am I shouting in the dark? Tim, we're good? All right, Commander Pete, can you hear me? How's it going, Mark? I will assume that I've got sound and video. Hey, Rhino, how's it going? All right, good deal. So Tim's still up in the mountains, of course, and he's we all here in Arkansas, we're all having internet problems. I'm supposed to have a new modem headed this direction at some point, but I was on the phone with Comcast yesterday for about an hour and 45 minutes, on hold for about an hour and 45 minutes. And how's it going, Willie? How's it going, DM? And very delightful woman, very, very nice woman got on the phone, and we chatted for about 20 minutes, and the upshot was they were going to send me a new modem because ours we had lost internet service, I don't know, 12 times in the past day or so. And she said, you will be receiving a text notification from whoever within 10 minutes of this phone call. Just look for that and then set up your scheduled delivery, blah, 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 blah. That was about 30 hours ago. So I'm not so sure that 10 minutes meant the same in my... Maybe she's on troll time. Trolls are always late for everything anyway, so... So maybe it just works out. Ooh, it's hot. I had to turn the fan. Alright, Tim's with us. There we go. Tim, I'm assuming we're going to lose you at some point in the course of this conversation. I think you've lost it twice today, haven't you? There you go. Learn by doing, yeah. Unsupervised Steve is a bad thing. I am going to try. I've noticed that I've started cussing a little bit more on these streams. I'm going to try to ramp that back a little bit. It's very natural for me. I don't know why. 3 years in the Army, and my dad was in the Army too, and just a lot of cussing. Yeah, clean it up. Just a lot of cussing. And not for any particular reason. You know, occasionally there was a reason, but mostly it's just, I don't know, emphasis? Is that what it is? How's it going, George Fields? I guess that's why you cuss. My dad did say something to me once. He said, I cuss, meaning him, not me. He said, I cuss a lot less when there's no one around. And I thought that was the funniest kind of self-awareness that I've heard in a long time. And it's true, if nobody's around, what's the point in cussing? I still do it, but it loses a lot of its whatever, purpose or something like that. George, it's been a long time. Glad you could join us. I sent my wife some Always Sunny in Philadelphia clips for her to enjoy in the waning hours of her afternoon. She doesn't normally go in for that type of humor, but she's appreciated a little bit of it recently. My friends and I can work the S word or F word or the word but only yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's not even a cuss word anymore. I think it's just emphatic expressions. That's all it is. Cussing can be an art form, yes. My dad was very good at it, Vic. He could just string. It was like music listening to my dad cuss. He could just string stuff together like it was nobody's business. With the right emphasis, and it's just good. I've got a rule for my kids. They can cuss. I don't really care. They just can't do it around elderly people, young people, and around, this is my southern coming out of me, around women. So of course, my daughter can let off quite a string of words when she's irritated. Colorful metaphors. There you go, Rhino. But yeah, silly Fanny. Yeah, my mom never cusses, but she would say, what was it? Shit, Miss Kelly. If she said, shit, Miss Kelly, you knew the world was ending. Something had occurred. She just never cussed, and I wish you could let that one go, and you knew, just run, get out. All is lost. Davis never learned that. He always got caught up in something. I love Bless Your Heart. My wife does that very well. My wife's very Southern, and she's got that whole... My daughter, too. They both have got that, I don't know, wicked, mean streak that seems so very nice, and it's really not. It's absolutely hilarious. I need to continually remind my wife that she should be more careful with her language, but most of the bad words are in Portuguese. That doesn't count, right? Yeah. So long as no one can understand it, you're good, right? That's the way that works. Though I suspect Portuguese is pretty close to Spanish, would be my guess. So there's probably more that understand that than you would hope or fear. My family has that. Well, aren't you sweet? Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got that quite a bit. I think MF and SOB have to be my go-to expressions when I'm angry. Those are the ones that and CK. They just, CK, Castle Keeper. Though not Castle Keeper, this for this discussion. There was a pipe major in a bagpipe band I used to hang with. He could form entire sentences using profanity. That's awesome. Yeah, some people are gifted that way. They're just, it's a gift, and they should express it, right? That's what we're about. We express the gifts that we were given. Remember when Kenneth and I used to come up with all the words? Oh, yeah. Oh, my good God. I would sit in the back of that car while you two were driving, and Kenneth was up there. And you all would sit for just a mile after mile after mile coming up with whatever name of the body part. Quite entertaining. I wish I could have tape recorded those. Those would have been great to listen to as we sit on the river and do a little fishing. CK, so... wait, did I say that wrong? No, CS. I'm sorry, not CK. CS, that's the one. King Kothar. Yeah, not CK. Yeah, it's a wicked one. How's it going, Geek Preacher? Hey man, you need to let us know whenever I know you're getting on to Twitch, and I've seen some of your TikTok stuff, very cool, over on Instagram. But when you're doing your Twitch stuff, Geek Preacher, hit the trolls, hit my Facebook page, hit us out, let everybody know you're doing it. I like to stop and watch your sermons every now and again whenever I see them pop up. Thoroughly enjoyable. Love it. Yeah. Yeah, I got the initials wrong on that, King Kothar. Makes a little more sense to see, yes. You complete wheelbarrow. There you go. The best thing about real English is that anything can... Yeah, no kidding. Actually, I kind of like that. What did I say yesterday, Tim? Paddy wagons or something? I can't remember. Apple wagons? I don't know what I said. When Derek blesses your heart, he means it. And this is true. Just choosing a random word there as an example. What? No, how am I? Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Let us know. Just spam the crap out of us. It's good. I spam you enough with my goobly-goop, my troll stuff. So absolutely feel welcome to spam my stuff. Yeah, Chuck is extremely helpful. He's made this happen. So he and Tim, but Chuck was extraordinarily helpful. Tim pushed it in this direction because I was like an anchor on the bottom of the river, just dragging. So Tim pushed us forward, and Chuck did the grunt work, got us on it. We still got some improvements to make, but I think overall it's going pretty good. I like the whole setup. It's easy for me. I know he's talking about changing some of it, but as it is right now, it's pretty easy for me to just dive in, tackle it, and get rolling. Hot paddle wagons, that was it. Yeah. whatever strange consortium of words tumbles into my brain pan. But we are here not to discuss... wait a minute. So my friend told me a month ago that he was making his own game engine from the ground up, and I warned him how mind-numbingly awful it would be. The other day he called and told me he had no idea. Yeah, King. It's I remember the days that we were, and I'm going to say we, but it's really Davis and Matt Golden. We were developing the Siege engine. Oh my God, it went on for seemingly forever, and even for a mechanic as simple as a Siege engine, it seemed to go on forever. But and it was lots of just discussions about percentages and just stuff that I don't care about. Of course, I recused myself from all mechanical discussions in CNC. That was, yeah, it is like doing your taxes every day. You should see somewhere around here, I've got the files of Davis's original equations for the Siege engine, and he really wanted to put them in the CKG, and I said absolutely not. We're not putting that in CKG because it's literally just equations of what the odds are. I don't know what it is. I hadn't looked at it in 10 years, but it's really just, it's not good. It's not good. Not good. Yeah, nobody wants to do their taxes once a year, much less once a day. But we are here for Jim's Tricks of the Trade number 63. We are talking about starting new players. This is going to be kind of a thematic thing I think I do for the next couple of weeks, unless I get bored. But so I think next week we might kind of stretch out into bringing players back to the table who have already been there. That kind of touches into the losing players that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. But these are just some thoughts I had on how to kind of integrate someone who's new to the game. I've had to do that a lot in recent years as I've stepped up doing more convention events. Well, before all the conventions were canceled, as I began stepping up doing more convention events, I started having more and more new players at the table that hadn't played Castles and Crusades and were coming from whatever game they were coming from, Dungeons and Dragons or Swords and Wizardry or Dungeon Crawl Classics. Have you ever noticed how I really only say those three? Those are the only three games aside from Castles and Crusades and Amazing Adventures that I actually know, and that's the reason they're the only ones I say. I should really branch out and look at some of the other. There's Tunnels and Trolls, I guess that's one of them. Isn't there Labyrinth Lord? I think there's a Labyrinth Lord out there, something like that. The latest Kickstarter for CNC. This is a big one. Oh yeah. Oh, that's the landing page. That's right. Yeah, go check that out. And if you haven't seen the Old School Essentials, that's the one. I was actually talking about that earlier today. I couldn't remember the name of it. So, but whatever game that you're coming from, this is kind of what we're talking about with bringing new players in. This is what we're talking about today. I completely sidetracked myself. But we're talking about today bringing new players into the game, whatever game system it is that you prefer to play, whether you're Old School Essentials or Swords and Wizardry or Dungeon Crawl Classics. Oh yeah, it is Rhino. There is just an ass ton of RPGs out there. There's so, and I gotta tell you, it was weird too when I first went to Gen Con in 2000. I'd been going to Dragon Con for years. When I first went to Gen Con in 2000, I was absolutely floored at the sheer number of not only RPGs but games in general. I had no idea. I go to game stores, but I never really paid much attention to the noise around. I'd just go to the D&D section in those days and get whatever and move out. Miniatures, dice, whatever. But yeah, the number of games out there, and now with Kickstarter, of course, giving a lot of people a platform to actually try to get their game into the market. It's cool. I mean, there's just games everywhere. I've had to break down and pick up more 5e stuff simply because it's become a necessity. That game seems to be holding its own. I gotta say, she's 5 years into 5e? She's holding her own pretty good. I think across the board we're seeing a decline in sales, but nothing that nothing sort of killed the brand or anything like that. Though I'm always hearing rumors. I'm already hearing rumors of a 6th edition floating around. People want that image you've been posting everywhere for the new Kickstarter as a poster, please. It's getting a ton of love. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to be a poster. There's no doubt. It will definitely be a poster. I got to decide what type of poster. At first, I was going to do just a regular poster on poster paper, whatever. But now I'm kind of thinking a little bigger. That thing turned out so much more beautifully than I expected it to. I mean, Jason's a fantastic artist. He always does a great job. I love his art. But that one just really... I mean, when I opened it up this morning, it's the first thing I got this morning when I clocked in at 7:30. I went to the email, and there it was. And he's out in Western Canada, and opened that thing up, and sweet goodness, I was absolutely floored. Sent it to Tom Tullis immediately over at Fat Dragon Games, because not only is he's a good friend of mine, but he's a huge fan of Jason. So I immediately sent it to him, and he went apeshit too. So it's just it's a fantastic cover, absolutely. We're entering year 6. Okay, there you go. So that's really good for an RPG, and it's really good for a D&D RPG. 6E is likely coming. Just watch the Wizard of the Coast job notices lately. they're obviously gearing up for something big. That's what I'm thinking. Same here. I'm hearing rumors about 6E. Personally, don't think it's a great time, but hey, I'm just a fan. Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's all of these companies, TLG, Goodman, they all have to make decisions based on, you know, revenue and all this other crap. So they'll do what they have to do. Hopefully it's as good as 5E and they don't do anything to really upset the apple cart. They've got a good game here, and I'd really like to see them push this game into a broader market, and they've done a fantastic job at that, but just push this game to a broader market as opposed to splitting this fan base. And that's what they're going to do when a 6E comes out. You're going to have a lot of people who go to 6E, but a lot of people who stay with 5E. And you split the fan base. It was one of the reasons. There's this great Dragon article, I've talked about it before, that Gygax wrote way back in the day, in the early 80s, and his thing was there will never be a second or third or fourth edition of Dungeons & Dragons, because as soon as you do that, you split the fan base, and then you got it to either abandon one game or support 2 games, or in our case, 6 games. And then he's dead on. And it's that article is actually one of the underlying foundations of Castles and Crusades, because when I read it, it made such sense to me that I was determined at that point, and when I talked to Mac and Davis when they were developing the Siege engine and all that crap, that this is a one-shot. We're done. Once we've done this, if you want to do a different role-playing game, we're going to do a different role-playing game, but this is Castles and Crusades, and we're going to stick with it. And we have. We have not changed that game. The fundamentals of that game have not changed in 15 years, which sounds just... Is that right? Yeah, 15 years. Good God. That's crazy. Yeah, 6 to 8 years sounds about right. Retro Gamer, you're dead on. It is a perfect time to introduce 5e gamers to CNC, and I'm hoping that the Kickstarter coming up helps us do that. We're going to dive into that like crazy on October 12th. It'll be more like 5.5, an alternate set of adapted. That's what I'm thinking they're going to do. I can't imagine that they're going to abandon 5e and create another mechanic. I just can't imagine them doing that. They've got a good mechanic here. It's very much like my own, so so you know, it's a good one. Well, yeah, that's the thing with keeping these games fresh is kind of difficult. Obviously, Castles and Crusades has a much broader market to build into, so it's easier for CNC. But you got to add stuff to it. You got to bring things to the table, and they're, in my mind, they really aren't. One of the things I'm very proud of TLG for doing. We've got a lot of different stuff in here. I mean, the Mythos series alone is 6 huge books that can give you all kinds of new playing material with the same Siege mechanics. It's just good stuff. In my experience, modern gamers are averse to learning new systems. The whole point of 5e is simple accessibility, which opens the game up to players who wouldn't otherwise bother, which is a good thing. However, that does kind of shoot them in the foot when it comes to continuing to new editions. Yeah, that's part of the problem with RPGs, is they have certainly set the tone that to rejuvenate themselves every 3 to 6 years, they have to come out with a second edition so that they can get new players, but the new markets share and a new exposure at shelves and all of that stuff. But also, they know their loyal fans will follow. I think that there's kind of a flaw in that system. I think really it might behoove them to look into new avenues and expand the game into new avenues, whether that's movies or comic books or today's video games or whatever. It might be something that otherwise you can do, and then you expand here and you kind of pull people into your main RPG. And it's all very tangled, the way retailers, the distribution market works, all of these things. It's one big mess, and there's no easy solution to any of it. It's easy for me to sit here and say Wizards of the Coast should do this. Chances are there's a really good chance they've tried multiple different things, and it worked with varying degrees of success, what have you. So, yeah, it's a big bag. 6 editions of D&D, counting original D&D over 46 years, means 7.6 years per edition. Yeah, now, I'm not sure. Are you counting... There's a 3.5 kind of jammed in there. I'm not sure if that includes that. Well, technically, AD&D was first ed. So if you count D&D, then there's 7 editions. Wait, I'm not allowed to count the... it gets all kinds of confusing, however you define whatever. All right, but let's dive into GM's Tricks of the Trade. Today, we'll just kind of barrel into that. This fan's killing me. I'm going to turn it off. I'll turn it away. All day my office was cold. Now it's warmed up. It's late in the afternoon, so the heat's kind of permeated through everything. All right, so today we're talking about bringing new players to the table, and specifically we're talking about players who have never played the RPG of choice. So whatever that RPG happens to be, you've got someone new at the table, whether it's at a convention or at your house or at your local shop, whatever. Someone wants to play, and how best to kind of bring them in the table. And these are just some thoughts that I had, things that I do. I want to throw them out there, and as always, chew them up. Let's talk about them, and ideas that you have when you bring in new players. Definitely put it in the feed. We'll discuss those. That's what I love about Jim's Tricks of the Trade. It's really kind of all of us sitting around a table and gabbing about how much collective experience do you suppose is here? I don't know. A couple hundred years. A couple hundred years of collective GMing experience. They have a question about the M&T binder. I see it comes with the PDF to print pages, but the pics only show the binder. Does it come with a printed copy of all the pages also? Yes, we'll go in and clarify that. I had another person ask that question. So yeah, you get the binder, and then we print one and hole punch it, and then you get the PDF in case pages tear or you want to tear or whatever. And that way you can jam it back in there. Tim and I'll get in there and clarify that. We had another question like that about a week ago. And since 4E came in 2008, then 3.xe was really only 8 years. Man, that's just it's too confusing. It's too confusing, Mark. I'm checking out of that discussion. It's too much. You went to decimals, so I'm done for. Yeah, 200 years. Isn't that crazy? I made it a half-century mark living already. That's a pretty good score. So the first thing in this Tricks of the Trade, when we're talking about bringing in new players, starting new players at your table, is kind of a learn by your doing. I don't ever, when someone joins my table, whether it was AD&D or Castles and Crusades now, whatever game I'm playing, I don't sit down with them and explain to them all of the minutiae of the rules. It's just 200 plus. Narrowly ducks the question. Noted. Exactly. Yeah. So when what I try to do is just introduce them to a little bit, just kind of give them an idea of what's coming. Nothing huge. I don't spend 30 minutes explaining how all the combat matrices work and the charts that they got to use and the attribute check system or the skill system or the proficiencies or any of that stuff. What I try to do is just give them a really quick touch on the mechanics, the core for Castles and Crusades. That's going to be the siege engine, of course. Everything else I want to bring in during gameplay and utilize other players to kind of make that happen, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But generally speaking, if you sit down with someone new at the table and you spend 45 minutes explaining rules, they're not going to absorb that stuff by any stretch. They're going to listen to the first 10 minutes of it, and then it's going to be the Charlie Brown wah, 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 wah. I know that's how I am. If you're trying to explain something to me, you get to the point quickly, so that I can get into the game and start playing, and I'll learn as I do. It's how we learn to ride bikes. It's all of these things. So what did I miss? Had to welcome the wife home. I think you missed literally nothing, Gig Preacher. We were just talking about editions of Dungeons and Dragons. That's all we were talking about. Don't explain the mechanics unless they're already a veteran of the hobby. Just describe the soft stuff like the narrative, the tone, the world. Absolutely, that's it, King Kothar. You do not want to bore them down with all that stuff. Most people don't care the percentages. Most people don't care about how all of that works. They just want to know that when they get in the car and turn the key, they can go. What did my son say the other day? Driving is literally the easiest thing he has ever learned in his life. And that's true. It's just a wheel and two pedals. But there's a whole lot that goes into that, right? And so, but to teach someone to drive them, they don't need to know how many horsepower the engine has or what kind of brake pads are on there. You don't need any of that crap. You should learn it, definitely. As you go forward learning to drive and you have your own car, you should learn all that stuff for safety reasons. And the same thing goes for an RPG. You're going to learn those mechanics. You're going to figure them out. Those that are important to you, you'll remember, and those that aren't, you won't care about. But to begin with, just keep it simple. Absolutely keep it simple. And one of the ways that I do that, of course, and this is what the learn by doing is, so I'm not going to go into the deep mechanics of the game. I'm just going to explain that this is how the siege engine works, or whatever system you're using, and then get started playing. As soon as the characters are made, then get started playing. And I'm almost always on a new player. Almost always, I'm going to have them encounter something, usually a river, a chasm, a wall, a hedge, something that they have to navigate somehow that's going to require some kind of mechanical check. In CNC's world, it's obviously the siege engine. Well, it's not obvious if you don't play CNC. It's the siege engine, the attribute check system. Same thing with Dungeons and Dragons, I think. And then have them do a few checks. And one of the reasons I choose rivers so often for new players is there's so many things that go into swimming a river. If you want them to make an attribute check for every 20 feet, and the river's 100 feet, that's 5 attribute checks. That gets them rolling immediately. It gets them learning the mechanic immediately. And then you can change things up. If they miss one and they're sucked down the river, they can try to grab a branch. They can try to do this, all kinds of stuff that they can do. And try to cut their armor off, whatever it is. I try to get them so that there's some kind of encounter that they're using the basic mechanics quickly. Sometimes I use combat for that. Usually not for beginning players, simply because it can be overwhelming, especially if they take a lot of damage and get obliterated quickly. Then they didn't learn a whole lot. But when it's something that you can control as a GM, keeping it simple is keeping the encounter, keeping the whatever obstacle that they have to navigate simple and controllable is the best way to do it, I think. Let's see, what did I miss here? Same advice goes for the campaign setting, which you covered in the past. Yeah, absolutely, Rhino. We've talked about that. Don't spend 45 minutes discussing your campaign setting as much as you want to. I do it. I want to do it too. I got all of this stuff in my head. Hold on to it. Just hold on to it. Yep. I drop it to a choose your own adventure style as set in the world, then prompt for their action. That's it. You really want to get them going, and really, and this sounds crazy to a lot of non-RPGers, but those of you who are veterans know the truth of it. If you can get people rolling dice, I don't know what it is about dice, but when I think it's that. If I was to dissect it, there's a primordial part of our beings, of Homo sapiens. We lived in the plains forever, running from everything that got near us. And there's chance in everything that we did. We had to drop out of the tree to go get whatever was on the ground, to go eat that dead animal that something else had killed. And there's chance and there's risk. So I think gambling is kind of hardwired into our whole system. So when they pick up that dice and roll it, I think it probably summons some kind of primordial desire of whatever, drive, I guess. I don't know. So get them rolling dice as soon as you can on something very, very simple. And for the love of God, if your character sheet looks like a tax form, don't show it to them ahead of time. You'll have a vacancy on game day. Yeah. And I know some of these games, the character sheets are 5 and 6 pages. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it's one of the reasons I get a little bit of criticism for this. It's one of the reasons at conventions I don't want pre-generated characters. I want those players. Now, this is very specific for Castles and Crusades. One of our angles on C&C is the fact that it's very simple to learn, and part of that is character creation process. Some of the games it can take you 45 minutes to 2 hours to make a character. In C&C, you should be able to make your character in about 15 minutes. And I want the new players that sit down at my table to know that, because you're dead on, King. That, man, a character sheet with shit all over it. You're like, I don't want to do this. I got no interest in this. I have a group of 4 women that have never played before. They'll be having their first adventure in a few weeks. Oh, Andy, man, that is very cool. That is very, very cool. I love new players, actually, and especially if they're new to the hobby. And if you women that play the table and they're nothing like stereotyped, whatever, turns out they're just as varied as males. Some like combat, some like role playing, some like this, some like. Turns out women are human too, so you're gonna have fun. That's cool. I would definitely keep it simple as you jump in, just because mechanics, people aren't used to it. Mechanics can run them off, male or female, it doesn't matter. I can tell you right now, if you want me to play a role-playing game, if you sit me down at your table and you spend more than 15 minutes explaining the intricacies of some rule, I'll play because I'm polite, but I'm not paying attention anymore. That's just the way that is. Mental note, wear water wings in the game with Steve. Water wings. Yeah, I do a lot of swimming. There's a lot of drowning in my games. Everything's kind of built around water. I don't know why. I don't know why. There you go. I believe that D&D Beyond has really helped that company grow by providing a simple, easy-to-use navigate character. Takes the math, which I like out of Victory. Yeah, it's a good thing. I believe, now I could be wrong, but the standard 5e character sheet's pretty big, isn't it? It's like 5 or 6 pages. I want to say that I might be thinking a 3rd edition, but I want to say that that's the case. And most of it 3 pages. And most of it isn't, it's not germ to what you're doing, I'm sure. Just some of it is. You just got to have all that crap in there. Yeah, keep it simple. Keep it simple. And 42, you're right. That type of stuff, just easy. Don't chase them off with rules. Teach them the game as you start playing. Good Lord. All right. Second page is all RP stuff. I don't know what I'm thinking of. I saw some kind of 5-page. Maybe that is 3rd edition. I'm maybe taking a 3rd edition. Because I know 3rd edition got really complicated for a while there with all the goobly-goop that went with the game. It's a good game, but not quite mine. How's it going, Clever? Not quite my cup of tea. It was too mechanically driven. And we haven't had Bifford in here for a while. I hadn't thought of KFC. I just thought, man, where's Bifford? We haven't seen him in a while. I haven't wanted Kentucky Fried Chicken because I haven't seen Bifford because he's always in here. I think he works for Kentucky Fried Chicken. All right, so second trick of the trade for bringing new players in is simple as best. So I run into this a lot, especially at conventions. People have never played the game. They want to get into it. They want to play. I try to steer them to. They always want to play the wizard or the cleric or whatever it is, but yeah, Chuck outdid himself on that one. Hey, he's got heraldry at least. A little smiley face. They want to play something that's a little bit too complicated, and I shouldn't say it's not too complicated. They're going to figure it out, right? They're going to learn all this stuff. We did. They can. It's no big deal. But it's going to drag it a little bit at the beginning of the game. It's going to be. You're going to have to constantly stop and explain how area effect works or whatever it is. So what I try to do is steer them towards something that's very simple. The fighter and the rogue come to mind the most. Probably the monk in most systems is a pretty simple class. I wouldn't ever steer them to the assassin because I hate the class so much. But that's a personal thing. A personal failing of mine. Maybe the bard. The problem with bards, I had the young lady who's doing our videos, our promo videos. Man, I forgot to get that. Where's my CNC video? She started, when the first time she gamed with me, she gamed with me and my sons, and she started a bard. I didn't think much of it. Yeah, I don't dislike the bard. I don't ever really think about the bard that much. It's more of an impacting character than it is kind of a passive role, I guess. But she played her really well for a while. It was good. She played her really well, and it was really good, but when they got to like 5th level, there was limitations. Suddenly she was realizing limitations, and it wasn't as fun. But it's probably a good introductory. Because of that, it's probably a good introductory class. She actually switched and started a new character and did a druid. And once because she had learned the mechanics, and this is a poster child for this. Because she learned the mechanics, playing the bard, got kind of unhappy with the bard, switched characters, and I let her do it seamlessly. She was just the same level. Different name, different character, just same level and all that crap. And suddenly she had spells and all these things she could do as a druid, and she just jumped into it like fire. So it's just, if you start them out simple, they can learn the game, and then after 5, 6, 10 sessions, or 20, whatever, it doesn't matter, when they're comfortable with it, start a new game or let them switch or what have you, and then they can get into it, get into the new character, and then really start pushing the boundaries. I got a big bucket of KFC yesterday to last through the weekend. Yeah, Mark, that's the best way to do KFC, man. Buy it, put it in the fridge, and eat it all weekend. Absolutely love it. They got those new French fries at KFC now. Lord, forgive me for what I've done. Nice. I've never had success with steering newbies to simple classes. I think that's something to do with the popular media. Warriors and thieves aren't given the attention in modern fantasy that they once had. As Wizard World now movie. Yeah, that's the challenge, right? You'll sit at a convention, and especially at my table with 20 people, I'm trying to steer some of the new people away from complicated classes because I know when it comes around to them, it's going to kind of stop everything as someone, myself or someone at the table, has to explain to them, whatever mechanic. And again, most of it's not that complicated, but it will slow the game some down. So if you can, steer them to something that's simple. And I'm with you, King. I think the fighter is really undersold. It still is my favorite class. It's like, I don't know, it's like the little engine that could. It just keeps going. There's no limit. Anything that's going on at that table, there's probably something the fighter can do. So I absolutely love it. Magic is for villains. Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. They just need to know 3 words, I guess. Fireball, right? And they do that frequently, which I guess is a good thing. That is their purpose. That is the wizard's purpose in the world, is casting the fireball. Bah, fighter just stands there and hits stuff. That's what most people think. But at least they can hit stuff. They get a variety of weapons. I don't know, I just love fighters. If I'm ever at your table, I'm a very active player. I don't do riddles and traps well. My characters frequently die when such things are presented to me because I can't. My brain's not wired for riddles. You can say what has 3 legs when it's old and 2 legs when it's younger, whatever the hell that riddle is. I'm like, I don't know, cow. My brain just doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't equate that stuff. So riddles and traps, I'm just gonna die. But that riddle is bullshit, anyways. How does that riddle go? It's like 4 legs at dawn, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs at night. Is that what that is? At dusk or something? Something like that. I guess it's presupposing 4 legs at dawn, 2 at noon, 3 at night. Yeah. So it's presupposing that you're gonna have a cane, and then as a baby. See, my daughter, how would you do this? My daughter never crawled. She figured out the way she became mobile, she would lay on her back and scoot with her legs. So she just scooted all over the house. She couldn't see very well. She bumped into things all the time. But after a while, she figured out where the hallways were and where the doors were. She could scoot into things. The door jams were funny because she would scoot and she'd bump her head on the door jam as she went over it. But I don't ever remember her crawling. Now, the boys did. But at some point in Germantown, there you go. That's how that riddle should go for Rachel. Yeah, and the boys did, but I don't remember her crawling. She just one day just figured out she could stand up and walk. She started walking. Probably about the 49th time she hit her head on a door jam. I thought enough of that. And I just let her scoot. I don't care. However you get around the house is good by me. I don't care. All right. So yeah. So if you did we jump into? Oh yeah. No, we didn't. Okay. So I moved my thing to number 3. Rolled the character. Stood up and ran. Right. Yeah. She did. She was always a little quicker on learning these things than my boys were. My boys just didn't give a shit. They just didn't care. They didn't care about learning stuff when they were little. They just figure it out as they go. And I'm alright with it. I think the funniest thing, and my wife still gets angry at me about this today. So I was out in the backyard killing a nest of yellow jackets. I remember it, and I looked through the window. And I know no one wants to hear children's stories, but you're going to hear this because it's kind of funny. I looked through the window, and Pete is like 5, 6, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, something. And Rachel's 2 years older, so whatever. And they're both standing in the doorway looking at me, and Pete's standing there with his hands like this, and there's blood just pouring out of his head, and it's down his cheeks, and it's come down his arms, and it's kind of pooled in his palm. There's blood everywhere. And they're just looking at me with these shocked looks on their expressions. And of course, as you know, head wounds just bleed ferociously. So I jumped up and ran in there to see what's going on. And I cleaned Pete up. Apparently they had been playing Superman and Wonder Woman, and Rachel had tried to get Superman to fly, so she threw him. And he hit some kind of cabinet and busted his head open. But I took him to the bathroom, and there was just so much blood. And I asked him, I cleaned him up, and I said, well, do you want to go to the, he's like 4, and I said, do you want to go to the emergency room? And he said, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. I said, all right, so I just bandaged him back up and sent him on. He bled for like 6 hours, but it just kept seeping out. My wife was absolutely furious with me. And what made it worse, I didn't use a butterfly band. I didn't know there was such a thing as a butterfly Band-Aid. I just stuck a regular Band-Aid on his head and sent him packing on his way. So, can you imagine a random encounter with pixies that polymorph into a form of human babies? Only they can go into a dead spring. It's like Kill Kittens from Ardu and Gamor. I remember when Davis did that. So Ardu and Gamor is so for those of you who don't know, is an old RPG supplement from the 70s. Great stuff. Fantastic stuff in that book. And one of the monsters was Kill Kittens. And I remember this day when my character came up on those little bitty kittens in a basket. And I came up to those kittens and they leaped out and shredded my character. It was so funny. It was the good old days. Anyway, so what we're talking about. Roll the character. Okay, so once they've chosen whatever class it is, whether it's complicated and hopefully simple, now's a good time to kind of to seep rules into it while they're rolling it, and drift around, give them a couple of pointers on how the attributes work, or what hit points are, or how you get armor class up or armor class down, or whatever system it is that you're using, and just kind of bleed to those rules that are germ to the actual character, out to them while they're making the character sheet. One, it kind of alleviates a little bit of the boredom of making a character until you really know what you're doing, and it becomes an enjoyable progress. I know a lot of us, I do, making characters can be a lot of fun. Learning it, not so much. But so just kind of let them know about certain things, armor class, hit points, and what have you. You don't want to overdo it, because you actually do want to spend a little bit of this time getting things going, as we'll talk about in a minute. But while they're rolling a character, it's just a great time to learn basic stuff, particularly about the combat, particularly about armor class. It's a great way to kind of just let folks know, you're going to roll a d20 to hit this armor class, so is the monster. This armor class is the number they got to get, whatever system it is. Pretty easy stuff that they can get into pretty easy. How's it going, Green Lantern? Quick side question. Will you be joining Elisa Faden on her stream, making the map for the new CK guide? We all want you to join. When is it? Yeah, if I can get into it, absolutely. I absolutely love Elisa Faden's work. I love Elisa. She is such a delightful person. Her Facebook page is one of the few that I actually enjoy going to, because it's just all cool stuff. It's just really cool stuff. Tom Tullis, I recommend you go to his, because it's just all kind of rough memes. So, you gotta have a thick hide over there. Tullis is just a great Facebook page, and Elisa is just filled with just ships, planes. She put something up yesterday or today at some point about some kind of ship sailing over this wrecked World War II plane. It was just awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, just let me know when that is. I'll track it down. I'll figure out what that is. Would love to. There's a new map for the CKG. And yes, Commander Pete, she's doing 7 maps, I believe. Or 6, I can't remember. She's going to map out Thorpe Village Hamlet? No. Thorpe, Hamlet, Village, Town, City, and a Metropolis. So those are going to be... I'll get a hold of her. Yeah, I talk to her frequently. We got another really cool project I'm wanting to get started in the next couple of weeks that she and I are going to work on together. She's just absolute pure delight to work with. I just absolutely nothing but good to say about her. I'll definitely shoot her a message. Thanks for the heads up on that, Green. I wasn't aware of that. She may have mentioned it to me, and I missed it somehow. Are there any color-coded sheets where the core inputs are coded so it is easy to visually see where they fit in later in the sheet? There's not. But that's a great idea, 42. That is a fantastic idea for a character sheet. Make that important stuff, stand out. And if you could actually equate it to whatever player's handbook that you're doing, that's really cool. That's an interesting concept, and it's interesting you should bring that up now. I'm going to make a note of that. 42. If you don't mind me stealing your idea there. We've got the 8th printing of the player's handbook. The Kickstarter is going to launch on the 12th. And color-coded character sheets. That's just a good idea. I like it. And if we're going to make some pretty big changes to it, I think. Not the rules, all that's going to stay. The text is going to stay. So if you've got a version already, you don't need this one. Wait, you do need it. Tim tells me to quit saying that. But we're going to do a new layout on it, and we're going to have new art in it. So it's going to have a slightly different look. And this would be kind of an interesting way to do. So if we did a tab maybe on the armor class section, and then it's yellow, and then it's yellow on the character sheet. That's an interesting idea. Yay, making these better. Can't wait to pick up the new stuff. Yeah, I like that concept. Anything to make it a little bit easier on new players and old players like myself. My eyes aren't what they used to be. I hate scouring crap, so yes, you need one of everything, people. Yeah. Tim has been getting on me for about a decade now to quit telling people they don't need stuff. It's probably not the best way to sell RPGs, but we'll do what we can. All right, so rolling the character kind of bleeds stuff into it. And the next one is right in with that, teasing the process. This guy's a diva. Right in with that, teaching them how to play the game while they're making the character. Once you've done that a little bit, explain to armor class or hit points or whatever, alignment, whatever it is that you've decided to do, shift before they're done with that character and start playing the game. And the really reason that I do this is so if you can get character creation through relatively quickly, or even if it takes a little bit of time, if they feel like they're already playing the game while they're kind of doing this, and they've only been at the table 10 minutes or 20 minutes, or the faster you can get them playing the game, the better it is for them and you, and the less chance of you losing them in route. So I generally, when I get behind the screen, they're wrapping stuff up, I'll start describing a little bit of information about the setting, the terrain. You're going to be in the forest, or you're going to be in the mountains, or whatever. Throw in the weather, just stuff like that, so that they're not going to pay attention to a lot of it, but they're going to start kind of absorbing and at least understand that the game has actually begun, even though they're still making their characters. Now, it's just a way to kind of tease the process forward so that you're playing before you're actually playing. Now, and then it gets them already in the mindset, it gets everyone in the mindset of what's coming, whether it's a desert adventure or a sea adventure or whatever, and they can start tooling their head in that direction. Okay, I think this is proof of no one listens to see. There you go. Yeah, well, that's probably a good thing. It's really, I think I'm the most egregious on the CKG because, as you all know, if you play Castles and Crusades, you really don't need the Castle Keeper's Guide. I recommend that you get it because it's actually filled with an ass ton of stuff. I used it. I ran a game last night. I pulled that CKG out 3 times just for some stuff. And interestingly, I noticed it's missing some stuff that I'm going to put in this new printing. So it's going to have what it doesn't have. It's got a decent little chart for the cost of food and room, room and board. That needs to be expanded. The CK needs to be able to go in there, and if there's 6 players, know exactly how much a 6-player room, a 4-player room, a 3-player, whatever. That needs to be clarified and put in, so that's going to go into. And then the next thing that they did is they started selling equipment and repairing equipment, and I couldn't find, it may be in there, but I couldn't find a chart to tell me, just give me a baseline of what, specifically they were sharpening a 2-handed sword. How much is this going to cost? So that also is going to go in there. I made those notes last night. That stuff's going to go on the new screens when I untangle that Gordian knot too. So just good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see, PHP and MT are must-haves. Everything else is extra. That, at the end of the day, you need those 2 books. Everything else is extra. And there's great stuff in it. I recommend you get whatever interests you. CKG has just got a lot of good stuff in it, just all over it. I love the idea for variant rules in the CKG. Yeah, I do too. When we pull those out occasionally, the only thing I don't use in there is the advantages. I haven't used those much. A little bit, but not much. Could there be info for a CK screen? Man, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. I got to stop now looking for... I got to figure out a different... You know what? That's funny you should say that. My brain's in overdrive these days. Too much going on. So, the last we talked about the screens, and I know we're in the middle of GM's Tricks of the Trade, but let me just give you guys this real quick. So, the last we talked about the screens, the special lamy-free paper that went on the outside, we manufactured them here in-house in our print shop. The lamy-free paper that allowed them to take water and not get damaged is no longer available. So, we had to discontinue that item, and we've been looking to replace it. Found a way to replace it, but the cost is too great. It's not something I really wanted to dive into. If we do, we'll have to a straight-up Kickstarter and never release it otherwise, and that's I don't like that approach to it. That said, talking to Tom Tullis over at Fat Dragon Games today, he had a great idea and his was kind of in a different direction, but it played into perfectly, that I can use regular paper and then have these things UV coated. So what's going to happen next, 42, I'm going to give so some of the stuff we outsource to a printer in Missouri, and then a little bit like covers. Cover stock, I don't like the quality that I do in shop, so I outsource that to a local printer, and then they UV coat it, and then we bind and cut and all that crap from there. So I don't know, but I think that we can do these screens, send them to them, and have it UV coated. I think. It depends on the distance between the plate and the spray nozzle on the UV coating, if they can fit it in there. So I will shoot her, Vic. I'm going to shoot Vicky an email on that as soon as this stream is over, and ask her if that's even a possibility. So hopefully we'll get some kind of resolution on the screens because we haven't had them in stock for 6 to 8 months at this point. Yeah, green. They need to be. And if not, if this doesn't work, I'm just going to have regular, the lightweight cardstock screens with laminate on them. I'm just going because it's too long, and I'm a huge fan of screens. So, yeah. Thanks, 42. It's good though. It's good. I'm getting a pile of notes here that need to be taken care of. It's a very good thing. Please make it easy. At least 4 panels though, because they're too small to fit in your notes behind. Yeah, absolutely. I love 4-panel screens and the 8.5 by 11 the portrait, right? Yeah, portrait screens. It's free to sharpen your sword until the blacksmith finds you. Yeah, there you go, Ken Cother. That should be a footnote in there. Well, it's free unless you get caught. So number 4 here, we did tease the process, right? I think we did that. Yeah, so you're kind of bleeding the game into as they're finishing up their characters, you're kind of just bleeding the game into. Yeah, we did tease the process. So let's dive into the last trick of the trade today. Focus. Yeah, so this is probably, I think we did. Let me recap real quick. So the idea was, while they're finishing up the character, just go back in there and talk about the terrain, weather, just kind of the basic setting that they're going to be up against, a dungeon, what have you. There's a castle on a hill, whatever it is, just to kind of get the flavor going, to get them kind of into the game a little bit while they're wrapping stuff up, which is usually equipping the character. I guess name is almost always the last thing people do. Yeah, well, who knows with me? I can't keep up with this. I can't keep up with what I'm talking about. So the last one's probably the most important. All those other things are cool things that you can do, ways you can kind of manipulate the process, character creation and whatnot. But if you've got new players, try to do your first adventure really focused. Don't build a campaign into it. Don't build any epic themes into it. You can have them. That's great. They can be part of it. Just keep them to yourself. A simple dungeon of 5, 6, 10 rooms. 2 or 3 encounters or 1 big encounter. A little bit of role playing. Just something very, very simple, very focused, so that the players can get into it immediately, understand it immediately, and really, at the end of the day, you want them to succeed. You don't really want them to fail. You want them to succeed at this task so that they can learn the mechanics, learn how the game works, and get into it. And I would say, 8 out of 10 people get into it as soon as there's flesh to it, they get into it. But if you make it too complicated, like all of these things, if you have all these thematic elements that they're trying to, they got to take the ring to Mount Doom and all that crap, it's often too much to begin. And it leaves this kind of confused taste in their mouths. So keep your original adventure, your first one, probably the first 2 or 3. I usually do it for the first about 7, 8, 9 sessions. Just very focused, very, very focused. String them together or don't, it doesn't matter. It's just stuff that's very focused. What about 2 3-panel screens, like the old 1E AD&D screens, a Super CK screen, but waiting until the new CKG is out, with all sorts of extra stuff on the additional panels. The problem, Mark, is finding printers to do that. There were more 10 years ago. Most of them have offshored at this point, and as you know, TLG doesn't offshore. We do stuff here. So in the United States or Canada or Mexico. But the problem is finding printers that'll actually do it. And mainly because a lot of these printers, they've gone from offset to digital. And digital have, as great as digital can be, it's got limitations, tray sizes, all that kind of crap. So you get into this, it's just a different process. It's one reason I liked our screen so much. We ordered board from Tennessee, and we had this Lamy free paper come in from Florida. We cut, trimmed, clipped, folded, glued, all that crap in the shop, and they're sturdy as hell, but we controlled the process completely. Control the price and all that, but without letting me free paper, I'm kind of done for. But yeah, we'll see. I will keep everyone posted. Focus is somewhat an ironic tip with. Yeah, irony's good, isn't it? Isn't it, Commander? Because this stream never stays focused at all. I always love when at the first session after character creation you ask everyone to share their names and describe their characters, and they just look at take shock and terror. Oh yeah, the name's the worst, but also the descriptions. And I try to go really light, just a quick idea of what your character looks like, so that they don't get too overwhelmed with. And then if there's a veteran player who, just describing colors and where their buckles are and all that stuff, it can be all a little disconcerting. This is one of the reasons I like starting with players on the road. It starts the game going with the slow moments at the beginning, not sort of a character discovery. Yeah, absolutely, 42. I'm on the road guy too. It's almost always on the road, a day or so from a body of water, bridge, something, because you're moving, and I don't have to worry about a bunch of NPCs. When you're at a bar, tavern, or whatever, suddenly you're doing auto role playing, and I don't really want to do that at the beginning. I want them to do it. Yeah, that's a good point. It's my favorite place is outdoors. Yeah, I get the onshore online. IMOs for the best only. Yeah, it's really, I'm going to have to devote a few days, I think, to making phone calls and emailing and unraveling this problem. I don't think that Goodman offshores his screens. I got to get a hold of Joe, see what he's doing. But I think he only does the card stock ones. I can't remember anymore. We're looking at a number of options, but short term is I'm going to try to get our system back up and running. And if that UV coding that Tullis suggested works, then that's definitely a way to do it. I will say the only problem with the screens doing them in-house is it is a time-consuming process, and the only ones really trained to do it is Mark Sandy and myself. And Mark can do it really about twice as fast as I can. He's much better than I am. His mind is built engineering-wise. But we've never trained Todd or Tim or Davis or anyone else has been trying to do these screens. It's time-consuming. Put them in the entrance of a dungeon, give them a flimsy excuse as to why they are there, let them choose to enter or not, then you've got them by the balls. If you'll excuse the expression, they'll be more confident in their decision-making when they have a limited set of options, left, right. No, you're right. That's it. Don't give them all of this stuff that you want to do. Keep it simple. Keep it focused. They're going to go forward. Don't get into long discussions of why they're adventuring there or whatever, whatever it is. Don't do any of that. Just keep it simple. Simple and focused. Railroading the plot at times is better than fully open world. Players need direction, motivation. If they don't understand what the next step or thing is, then the game is not fun. It's funny you should say that too, because railroading, it's like metagaming. It gets a bad rap, and in some instances it is a bad thing. You don't want to metagame or railroad, but sometimes you do. And as a GM, that is, that's a great. Damn, 42, you're on fire. That's a great GM's tricks of the trade. Sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes you've got to railroad it a little bit to make the game go forward, or to get new players involved, or to get discouraged players back at the table, or to get people who've left back at the table. And sometimes the game just sits and no one knows what to do, or someone doesn't want to make a decision. I'm running into that a bit lately. It's trying to force other players to make decisions, so the other ones don't feel like a player is kind of running them roughshod. There's times to railroad, definitely. Times to metagame, times to railroad. And new players is almost 90% of the time to do it, because you really just want them to go on the adventure. You want to get them started. Once they've started, they're going to learn how to play their character. They're going to learn how to play the game. They're going to learn how to role play. There's so many good things that come out of that you just want to get the game going, and that's what all of these tricks of the trade today were about. From quick character creation to going light on the mechanics, learning as you play. All of this stuff is really built to get the game going, because once they start playing, solving problems, killing monsters, getting treasure, you've all experienced that euphoria you get when you slay. I remember the first orc I slew. It's back in 1976 or 77. It's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely get the game going. Helps with keeping focus of the game. Yep. In my experience as a GM, I use a loose plot line, which feels like I'm not railroading them, even though I am. It's worked for over 10 years. Yep. It's a good point, Green Lantern. Don't just... And that actually, the good thing about a loose plot line is you can shift off of it, too. If they go... You wanted them to go, down corridor A, they go down corridor B. You can shift as well. If you start out with too much stringent stuff, you're going to be disappointed and they're going to be frustrated. Keep it simple. Y'all all broke, and you heard that there's some jewels in there. Abandoned mine. What? Cannibal ghouls? Nah, son, you must have misheard. The mine is abandoned due to tax evasion on the part of the administrator. Just shut up and play the game, damn kid. Go. Yeah, yeah. I had Todd actually, and Todd's played for 40 years. They had shifted a few weeks ago. They had shifted on a different road. They were going a different direction. And I think Todd had forgotten. And he said, why are we going to this city? And I said, for gold, glory, and adventure. That's the only reason. We don't need to have a big discussion about why you're going here. No one really cares. It's easy to do. Absolutely. All right, well, I think that's it. We've run into... This session went super crazy fast. We almost have to expand these things a little bit. But it's 5 o'clock. That's Jim's Tricks of the Trade. If you have not given us a follow, please give us a follow. We sure appreciate any support you can give us. And we'll be back next... Wait. We're doing something tomorrow. We got a convention we're at tomorrow. We're doing Jim's Tricks of the Trade at the Greyhawk Con tomorrow, same time. But I will be streaming it here, but we'll also be streaming it over there. So definitely check that out. And I'm in a game with Chuck Saturday night, and then part of Gary Kahn's autumn thing next week. And then, of course, Tricks of the Trade next week and AMA next week. So definitely check all this stuff out. Give us a follow. You'll get all the news as it's coming. Yeah, that's true, King. We do. That's all right. All right, everybody. Autumn Revel, that's what it's called. The Virtual Greyhawk, that's the other one. Good Lord, I can't remember any of this stuff. All right, so thanks, everybody, for showing up. Sure appreciate it. Love the input, and we'll be back next week. Take care. Have a great weekend, everybody.